At its greatest reach, the Roman Empire stretched from modern-day Aswan in Egypt in the south to Great Britain in the north. But Roman influence extended far beyond its provincial borders thanks to trade and migration. Contrary to the common belief that the Sahara Desert was an insurmountable barrier before the Middle Ages, the Romans maintained a vibrant network of connections with Sudanic and Sub-Saharan Africa. Slaves, gold, food, and spices flowed from bustling settlements on the Niger River, through oasis cities in the Sahara, and eventually arrived at Rome's lively North African ports. Moving in the opposite direction, goods like gemstones, textiles, and coins reached cities along the fertile lands of the Middle Niger. Classical Greek and Roman writers referred to all of Sudanic and Sub-Saharan Africa as Ethiopia, while the term Africa originally applied only to the Maghreb, the region on the continent's northwest coast. Many Ethiopians within the Roman Empire likely came from East Africa via Egypt and Nubia, but recent findings highlight growing trade and military contact between Rome and West Africa as well. Roman exploration in West Africa. Roman journeys into the Sahara began early in the empire's history, although they declined in later centuries due to the region's desertification. In 19 BCE, the Roman proconsul Cornelius Balbus led a force of 10,000 legionaries into Libya to suppress the Garamantes, a Berber group from the Fezzan region. He captured the city of Gadames, then moved on to Garama, now Germa, before pushing farther south, likely reaching the Niger River. In the year 40, the Roman general Suetonius Paulinus crushed a rebellion in Mauritania, then led a renowned expedition over the Atlas Mountains and into the Fezzan. Around a decade later, the general Septimius Flaccus launched a campaign against nomadic raiders threatening Leptis Magna in today's Libya. His march extended far south of the Sahara, reaching a vast lake surrounded by elephants and rhinos, most likely Lake Chad, before returning north. According to the Alexandrian historian Ptolemy, a Roman merchant named Julius Maternus retraced Flaccus's path around 83 CE to explore new trade routes in West Africa. Traveling from Libya to Garama, Maternus was welcomed by the Garamantian king, who invited him on an expedition farther south. Maternus reached Lake Chad and returned to Rome with a two-horned rhinoceros, probably from Central Africa. The animal caused a sensation in Rome and was shown off in the Colosseum. Emperor Domitian, impressed by its popularity, minted coins featuring the beast between the years 83 and 85. Trade routes on the Niger River. Ancient cities along the Middle Niger took part in early trans-Saharan trade, even though they developed independently of Mediterranean and Mesopotamian cities. These urban centers operated on entirely different social, economic, and architectural foundations. They traded local agricultural goods for rare imports from the north. Djenne-Djenno, founded near modern Djenn in Mali by the Iron Age Nok culture in the early 3rd century BCE, shows some of the earliest evidence of Mediterranean trade in West Africa. By the 3rd century BCE, traders in Djenne-Djenno were already importing Roman or Hellenistic glass beads. Similar trade links have been discovered in Kissi, Burkina Faso, and Diashoma in Mali, suggesting that these exchanges reached well beyond the Middle Niger, including areas near the Niger Bend. Saharan intermediaries. Despite ongoing scholarly debate, ancient sources frequently refer to trade across the Sahara. Greek and Roman authors, including Herodotus in the 5th century BCE and Pliny the Elder in the 1st century CE, often describe these connections. Their accounts suggest that Saharan peoples played a key role in moving goods, people, and information between West Africa and the Roman world. Between the 1st and 4th centuries CE, Rome maintained close trade ties with the Garamant kingdom, which had become a client state of the empire. Greco-Roman authors often portrayed the Garamantes as wild nomads. On its Libya's borders dwell the Garamantians, a lightly clad, agile tribe of tent-dwellers subsisting mainly by the chase. Lucian of Samosata, Dipsa's The Thirst Snake, Chapter 2, translated by Fowler. But archaeological discoveries tell a different story. Excavations at Garama reveal that the Garamantes had permanent settlements supported by advanced irrigation systems. Their capital was a thriving trade center with a population of about 10,000. Finds such as amphorae filled with olive oil and wine, along with imported pottery, confirm their regular contact with Rome. Roman influence is also seen in marble, concrete structures, and wine presses. Most striking of all is a large mausoleum clearly inspired by Roman architecture. Carbuncles, gold, and ancient grains. Among the Garamantes' most valuable trade goods were semi-precious stones like carnelian and amazonite. These small gems, often referred to as carbuncles, were highly prized in Rome and frequently mentioned in ancient texts. Carbuncles, along with other gems, are some of the most common items linked to the trans-Saharan trade in West Africa. Due to their rarity, they likely served as symbols of wealth and status among the people of the Niger Bend. The Garamantes also supplied Rome with food, exotic sub-Saharan slaves, and possibly textiles, salt, gold, and ivory. While large quantities of sub-Saharan goods reached the Mediterranean, the flow in the opposite direction was much smaller. This was because the Garamantes and other middlemen often kept the expensive Roman products rather than passing them on to their southern contacts. Instead, they traded items like salt, food, and textiles with their West African neighbors. Roman glass beads and copper goods also made it south, but in limited amounts. The Garamantes imported a variety of West African crops such as rice, sorghum, cotton, and pearl millet, some of which were even grown in Garama. Leather and ivory from animals like hippos were also brought in from sub-Saharan Africa. And by the 4th century CE, domesticated animals like camels, chickens, and donkeys were being moved across the Western Sahara, expanding the reach of trans-Saharan trade. A West African gold trade route is believed to have connected with the Roman Empire briefly during late antiquity. Gold ore was mined in the Niger Bend, transported upriver, and eventually reached Roman cities along the North African coast. This pre-Islamic gold trade is supported by the fact that Roman gold coin production in Carthage and Alexandria only began around 295 CE and ended in 429 CE, when the Vandals invaded North Africa. This helps explain the presence of Roman glass, carnelian, and textiles found in Kissi, near the Serba gold fields on the Niger Bend, dating to the late 3rd century. This trade served as a forerunner to the better-known medieval gold trade led by Islamic merchants beginning in the 7th century. Roman coins are rarely found in sub-Saharan Africa, but the same is true for Arabic coins, even though the Islamic trans-Saharan trade was massive. That's largely because West African societies didn't use minted coins as currency. Any coins brought in were usually sent back north or melted down for their precious metal. Slave trade. More than rice and gemstones moved north of the Sahara. In fact, the movement of people has left a deeper mark on history than gold. Sub-Saharan slaves were vital as laborers in Garama, where huge canal systems demanded constant upkeep. The Garamantes likely fueled this trade more through raids than peaceful exchange. They were known to capture their southern neighbors while riding horse-drawn chariots. These Garamantians of whom I speak hunt the cave-dwelling Aethiopians, troglodytes, with their 4-horse chariots. Rock art from the Sahara shows Garamantian chariots, supporting reports of these periodic raids. The Garamantes also sold slaves to their Roman partners. Some Ethiopians in the Roman Empire were associated with Garamantian society, indicating that Romans were familiar with sub-Saharan Africans via this route. These enslaved individuals were transported in caravans across the desert from cities like Garama to ports on the North African coast. The Roman trade in sub-Saharan slaves focused mainly on children. Slaves were shipped through ports like Alexandria and Carthage before reaching Europe and the Near East. During the imperial period, much of this trade was driven by the Roman sex industry, since there were cheaper sources for labor in places like Italy, Gaul, and the Near East. While most West Africans in the Roman Empire likely arrived through slavery, some also lived within its borders as free individuals. Ethiopians are known to have served in the Roman military, lived in conquered territories, or traveled freely as traders and envoys. Even those who were once enslaved could eventually gain freedom and citizenship. Historical records, including art, inscriptions, and literature, show that Ethiopians contributed to Roman society as scholars, athletes, performers, and soldiers. A new perspective on two ancient worlds. It's often assumed that contact between sub-Saharan Africa and the wider world began only recently. But this isn't the case. The links between West Africa and the Roman Mediterranean show that distant civilizations were already reaching beyond their known worlds centuries ago. Trade networks like these allowed people to cross one of the most formidable barriers on Earth, the Sahara Desert, bringing with them cultural exchange and material riches.